And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Wednesday morning, flying weather looking like this. Band of IFR here with a northern system here extending from St. Lawrence Island down across Nunivak Island, and that extending into another system out over the western Bering Sea, covering areas from about Okiska Island to the Komodorskis. Otherwise inland, looking at some marginal VFR in the central interior, marginal VFR here, Copper River Basin in across the Madanuska Valley into Prince William Sound, portions of the Kenai Peninsula, and back into across the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay area, covering the Gulf of Alaska, and a couple of patches of IFR across the southeast coast. For the afternoon, mostly marginal for the Panhandle, extending back up across Yakutat and westward here to just east of Cordova. Central part of the state and the east, all looking good. VFR there, some lingering marginal VFR up along the Brooks Range, and a huge area of IFR pushing inland now along the southwest interior from the southern Seward Peninsula all the way down into western Togiak Bay, extending back across the Pribilof Islands and toward Atka Island. And then for the Thursday morning time, we're looking at, again, that big area of IFR pushing even farther east now, along and south of the entire Brooks Range, north of the mountains up there, though, especially on the central and eastern side, mostly VFR. And got IFR here covering the northern Bering Sea, central southern Bering Sea, and the Aleutians, marginal VFR. The IFR here right along the eastern Fox Islands there, up across the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR into Kodiak Island. Kenai Peninsula into the Susitna Valley, at least the southern Susitna Valley, staying VFR. And the southeast coast, marginal VFR with some VFR over the western areas out along the coastline. And we'll see for the afternoon, this area IFR breaks up and still hangs along and south of the Brooks Range in a narrow band up there. Otherwise, some IFR pushing into western Cook Inlet along the Alaska Range and the bigger area here farther to the west. But the Bering Sea and Aleutians, all marginal VFR, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, right on up into the eastern North Gulf Coast. And the Copper River Basin up to the Alaska Range, marginal VFR, but north and east of the mountains there, VFR for the southeast coast. And for passes, Hanatuva-Ganadigan, occasionally marginal for the day on Wednesday for both passes. VFR for the western Alaska Range, Lake Clark, Merrill, Rainy VFR, windy also VFR. Isabel VFR, Mintasta VFR, Tanita VFR, and Portage VFR. And then things become a little marginal over toward Chilkoot and White. And for the freezing levels here, 2,000 feet down over the southern southeast coast at the surface tomorrow morning over the northern Panhandle. And then out to the west with that broad area of southwest flow pulling warmer air northeastward into the western and eventually central Bering Sea. You can see 10,000 feet there out over the far western Aleutians. 2,000 feet here up to the Pribilof Islands down across on Alaska. And for the icing, big area of considerable moderate rime icing potential here over the north central Bering Sea, Pribilof Islands up to Nunivak Island, with isolated moderate covering all the western part of the state here from the Point Lay area all the way down across the Alaska Peninsula. And with that other system here, areas of considerable moderate rime icing also along the southeast coast. And for the jet stream, southwest winds, 65 knots, strongest over the southern Panhandle there. This is 33,000 feet, and ridging here ahead of the storminess farther to the west. We've got west-southwesterlies, actually westerlies here up to 150 knots, and northerlies tomorrow morning, 110 knots blowing down across the Kuskokwim Valley, increasing there around Kodiak Island. And at 9,000 feet, again, a big area of westerly winds, anywhere from 75 to 100 knots there in the Bering Sea. And then with a system here to the north, southwest, 60 knots into the western and central Brooks Range area. And we've got low pressure over the southern Gulf of Alaska. And 40 knot winds here right along the coast of the Panhandle and up along the North Gulf Coast as well. And 3,000 feet here with this low, 45 knot easterlies, small area there along the North Gulf Coast and then the Gulf of Alaska. Not much in the way of wind there with that low off the southern Panhandle at 3,000 feet. And westerly flow across all of the Bering Sea at 55 to 70 knots. Takes a turn to the north here along the west coast areas and 55 knots there across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta to about 50 knots for the Seward Peninsula. Turbulence-wise, considerable moderate turbulence expected here in the west at about surface to 8,000 feet. Also from Falls Pass westward to Shimiatu along the Aleutian Chain.